So, do you know anybody named Uzzah? Raise your hand if you know anybody, have met anybody or heard of anybody named Uzzah. I don't see one hand in the congregation, so I didn't think there would be. But in case you're looking for a new baby name, I recommend it. No, I really don't recommend it. Why? Because Uzzah was the one who touched the Ark of the Covenant. In 2 Samuel chapter 6, David had conquered Jerusalem and was bringing the Ark of the Covenant in there. And a guy named Uzzah was accompanying the Ark, pulled by oxen on a cart, and no one was supposed to touch that Ark. Okay? And they had long poles that the priests used to pick it up. There were hoops, rings that they would slide these poles through, and that's how they carried the Ark of the Covenant around. Not Noah's Ark, okay? Don't get confused. There's two arks. When you think ark, you probably think animals and critters going up a gangplank into a big boat. Okay, not that one, but the Ark of the Covenant is this box about that big, about this big, and it was made of acacia wood overlaid with gold, and it contained the stone tablets that Moses brought down from Mount Sinai, the rod of Aaron, and a jar with some of the manna from the wilderness. The holiest things in Israel's possession were contained. Literally, the word of God written with his finger on these stone tablets were kept and preserved in this sacred, inviolable vessel, precious, holy vessel. That God gave strict instructions and specifications how to construct it, how to build it. It was overlaid with gold. There were cherubim on either side. And on top of it, fancy Greek word, hilasterion. It's literally the mercy seat, okay? This is like the place of expiation, where on one feast in the Jewish liturgical calendar a year, the high priest only would go behind the veil into the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant was, and sprinkle blood on the hilasterion, the mercy seat where God's presence dwelt. This place of expiation of the sins of Israel on the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. And I heard they used to tie a rope around his leg in case he passed out or something. They could pull him out. No one would have to go back there. All right. So anyway, this ark was so holy. We can't imagine. To the Jews, generations of them grew up. They never saw the ark. Okay. But everybody knows it was back there where God's presence was. So what did Uzzah do? Well, the oxen stumbled, bringing the ark up to Jerusalem, and it jostled the Ark of the Covenant. It looked like it was going to topple onto the ground, so he reached out and steadied it with his hand. And you know what happened to him? He got zapped. All right, that's why you don't know anybody named Uzzah. Who wants to name their child after somebody who got zapped in the Bible, okay? So anyway, in case you were wondering, yeah, how come no one's named Uzzah? Now, the point there is that this Ark of the Covenant was so incredibly holy that it cannot come in contact with human sin at all. Be better for it to hit the ground. Then go get the poles and pick it back up again, okay? Don't touch it. Inviolable, precious. Sacred, holy, set apart for God and the things of God, this container for the Word of God. The merest foreshadowing or prefigurement of none other than the Blessed Virgin Mary. Okay, there's lots of little interesting things in 2 Samuel 6 that Luke picks up on in his story of Mary going to Elizabeth's house and so on. Yeah, here's poor Uzzah. The anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah. God smote him there because he put forth his hand to the ark, and he died there beside the ark of God. Now, David is like upset by this. He sees Uzzah get zapped, and he's like, man, how can the ark of the Lord come to me? Very same words of Elizabeth when the Blessed Mother comes to her home. Think that's an accident? And then how long he goes to this guy's house. He's like, I'm not ready to bring this thing up to Jerusalem quite yet. He's kind of unnerved, David is, by this whole thing. So he takes it over to this house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. And the ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed-Edom of the Gittite for how long? 3 months. How long did the Blessed Mother stay with Elizabeth? 3 months. How can the ark of the Lord come to me? David says, all right, similar to Elizabeth's words at Mary's greeting. All right, look, it's just no coincidence. This is all by design. What he's picking up on, Luke wants us to see, is that this Ark of the Covenant is a prefigurement, a foreshadowing, or what we call a type of the Blessed Mother. God kind of giving us a little preview of what he's going to do in salvation history. She's far superior to some box made of acacia wood overlaid with gold. She contains within her something far more precious than those stone tablets with the Word of God written in stone with his finger. She contains the living Word of God, the divine Logos that existed with the Father and shared his glory before the foundation of the world. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. She contained within her the Word, capital W, of God. So if that Old Testament box that's apparently in a warehouse in Dallas, Texas or something, no, Washington, D.C., because it's, isn't that how it ends in Raiders of the Lost Ark? So remember, Raiders of the Lost Ark. There's a lot of good history there. So somebody researched that, but I think it's in Washington, D.C., in some warehouse, government warehouse. But look, the Ark of the Covenant is just such an awesome reality, as cool as it is to think of that Old Testament temple and the Ark of the Covenant, all that mystery and holiness. How much more so then is the Blessed Mother? No one can touch the Blessed Mother. She can't come in contact with human sin. That's the point. She is immaculately conceived by the grace of God, by his prevenient grace, by his grace alone, preserved from all taint of original sin, to be this sacred, precious, inviolable, holy vessel of God, to contain the Word of God, far holier than that Old Testament box. As cool as it would be to see that. I'm sure many Jews would think, man, it'd be so cool to see that ark. I always wanted to see the ark. Wow. Well, then you're reading along in John's book of Revelation, the last book of the New Testament. You're a Jew. Generations of your family have gone up to the temple 3 times a year to see, to go to the temple, pay their respects, make their sacrifices, celebrate the great feasts. And you've never seen the Ark of the Covenant, neither of your forebears, your ancestors, for generations. So here you're reading this book of Revelation, this mystical vision by this follower of Jesus of Nazareth, and you're like, this is interesting, and you're reading along, and then you get to the end of chapter 11, and he says, then God's temple in heaven was opened, and the Ark of the Covenant was seen within his temple. Man, you hear that? Because the temple down here is just the merest copy. Read the letter to the Hebrews. I mean, it's nothing in comparison to God's temple in heaven. It's just a little copy, okay, made based on that pattern of God's temple in heaven. So, wow, you would wake up and pay attention if somebody said they saw in God's temple and the Ark of the Covenant was revealed. You'd be like, man, I want to hear about this. And if that isn't enough, the Ark of the Covenant was seen within the temple, and there were flashes of lightning, loud noises, peals of thunder, an earthquake, and heavy hail. So if nothing else, that'll get your attention, okay? Whatever comes next is pretty important. What does it say? Great portent appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child. Okay, the Blessed Mother is the Ark of the Covenant in God's master plan of salvation, and she is absolutely inviolable and holy and pure in God's plan. He prepared for her through this Old Testament type of the Ark of the Covenant is the merest foreshadowing of her coming into this world, what we're celebrating today. She's a sacred vessel, that's all. I mean, what's more important, the vessel or the contents? Obviously, the contents of the vessel. But that was important enough to God to go to all this trouble to prepare for the Blessed Mother's role in salvation history. And it seems perfectly logical and reasonable when we see the holiness of the Ark in the Old Testament and we transfer that and imagine the Blessed Mother eclipses that Old Testament box in her holiness and goodness. Her holiness and purity and virtues outshine all the saints combined, according to St. Alphonsus de Liguori in his book Glories of Mary. So today is a great feast, immaculate, inviolable, without stain, entirely pure from her conception. We cannot imagine the sparkling beauty of the Blessed Mother's purity.